Hello everybody, welcome back. It's the 1K Gamer, and today we are back for the 1 year anniversary of the series Opinions on Every Brawl Stars Brawler. If you're an OG, you'll know that this was a big hit for me back in the day, and I decided to remake it all in one episode for you guys today. When I did it before, I just gotten back into playing the game after a long break and didn't know many brawlers. So now that I've played over 400 hours of Brawl in the past year, I can tell you a little more. Without further ado, enjoy me yap. So we are just going to be going by brawlers from my most trophies to my least trophies, starting with Edgar. Edgar's a very fun brawler to use, and he's really good. He's one of the easiest brawlers to push, so I recommend you guys to do that, but he was much better before the hypercharge nerf. There's a big problem though, because little kids just ego pick Edgar and sell the game and go like 0-10. He's also considered skillless by a lot of people, because you just spam the green button, and the yellow button, and then the red button, and then you win. But yeah, that's about Edgar. Next we have Shelly. She's a really good brawler and easy to push. She's good at short and long range and deals a ton of damage. You also gotta point out that Star Shelly is just an amazing skin. Next we have Larry and Laura, which are arguably the most overpowered and skillless brawlers on release. They're insanely annoying to fight, even now, but they got nerfed 10 times. Something like that, I think. I haven't used them since then, but I still think they're pretty decent. And then we have Miko, who is actually skillless and very difficult to fight, especially with a thrower or a brawler with low reload and speed. All he requires is auto aim, and the only thing keeping him balanced is his reload speed. Next we have Cordelius, who isn't really a skillless brawler, actually requiring a good skill cap, but with the release of his hypercharge, he's really good. This is nothing compared to him on release though, when I was pushing max mastery, where he was just absolutely insane. He's a pretty balanced brawler. Next we have Charlie, who's a very fun to use brawler and satisfying when you hit your shots. And she's actually a very balanced brawler, but still usable in almost any game mode, especially ranked. Then we have Colette. She's really easy to aim with because of the hitbox of her shot, and paired with the super and hypercharge, she's overpowered in Heist, dealing tens of thousands of damage. I think she's still balanced though for the most part compared to other brawlers. Mortis is arguably the most famous trickshot brawler and the hardest to use by some people's perspectives. He definitely takes skill and time to learn his mechanics, but he isn't the hardest to use, and he can be a beast if you play him correctly. Also, people know him as the one who sells the game all the time, you know, the bad Mortis randoms. So we have Fang, who was in his prime earlier this year, thanks to his insane stats and hypercharge, but he was nerfed shortly later. Now he's still really good, and may or may not need a little more nerf. He can be lethal in team wiping and winning games with his dash, 3000 damage attack, and a stun gadget, which I really don't think he needs. It's really annoying to fight him if the enemy can play him well. Next we have Kit, who was all the rage when he was released, continuing the trend of new brawlers being overpowered. His showdown glitch where he insta-charged super was worse than any other thing before, for me at least, and it took weeks to fix because Supercell was on vacation. Now he's an alright brawler and can probably actually use a buff, because I don't really see him much anymore. Dynamite is crazy useful, especially in maps with walls. 1600 damage per stick of dynamite, and his hypercharged super can deal over 8000 damage. If you can aim with him, he's easily one of the most lethal but balanced brawlers in the game. Next we have Pearl, who is a really solid brawler that got a lot of unnecessary nerfs, which made her pretty bad. She had a lot of utility, with her only downside being her slow speed, but she was still balanced. She was fun to use, but now she's just not it. By the way, not to mention, change her hypercharge. It's terrible. Bro, what is this? Moving on to Nita, she's one of the most underrated brawlers in the game. I used her today and I was surprised because I forgot how good she actually is. She's extremely balanced and fun to use. Her attack is easy to hit because of her hitbox, and her barrier is absolutely insane in the right situations. We have Carl, who's really fun to trickshot with and use. He's not that good of a brawler and can definitely use some buffs, but he has a good concept, a lot of mobility with his gadget and super. We have Nani, who definitely needs a nerf on damage, and if used correctly can 1 to 2 shot most brawlers if you hit your shots. To use her, it's a very fun twist to the game, and she's a creative brawler, but if the enemy can use her correctly, you're cooked. We have Brock, who's a very underrated, fun, and balanced brawler. The only thing that Supercell can change is the visual hitbox of his attacks, because it's sometimes trippy thinking you dodged his attack by a mile, but then you get jump scared by a 2.3 thousand damage rocket. We have Piper, who needs a nerf badly. Her being able to deal 4.5 thousand damage per shot and have a gadget that aims the shot for you is absolutely ridiculous. She definitely needs a change in her attack, and she's game ruining if you verse a good player. Squeak is a satisfying brawler to hit with your shots with, but needs a big buff. He's just not practical to use over any other sniper and area control brawler, even though I like him. He also needs a range buff. Spike needs a rework because you almost don't have to aim. Curveball makes it so you hit 90% of your shots, and the random crits that he sometimes gets where he deals 3,000 damage are a pain to verse. Stu is one of the most adrenaline-inducing brawlers to play. It's so fun to dash around half the map, go through walls, and dodge enemy attacks. While it does take time to learn how to dash correctly, it's really rewarding in the end, and he's also really well balanced. Colt is another fun twist of the game, having just so many shots to shoot that it's hard to miss. He's pretty balanced, except maybe a little less damage, but one of the most deadly if you can hit your shots. Because of his damage and reload speed, he can probably deal the most bulk damage to tanks other than 8-bit. Doug is a very new addition to the kind of meta and balanced brawlers list thanks to his damage buff, where he now gets the same damage all around. He's surprisingly balanced, with his only downside being his inability to close down the space between you and your enemy, but nevertheless, he's really fun to use. Next we have Gale, who's a really good and really underrated brawler to use. He can pack a punch with the snowballs, and paired with his slow star power, ensures a kill on low health brawlers. Definitely should be used more. Barley, I'm probably speaking for a lot of people here, but I haven't used him in a long time. There just isn't anything that sets him apart from the other throwers, and he needs the buff to become who he was like multiple years ago. Sam is the meta in basketball along with Stu and gives extremely high adrenaline when used. He could use a buff and health, but it's overall balanced. You could just get in their face and team wipe them. Jessie's a fun brawler to use, but she needs the buff. Her turret can almost instantly be destroyed and can barely hit shots. She's a solid brawler with her hitbox and damage, but just needs a little push to be much better. Tick is an extremely annoying brawler to fight, but is overall really balanced. Not really much to say here. Bo's really skillless in hitting your shots and dealing 3,500 damage, and his mind stun is way too long. Definitely needs to be reworked. Crow is an extremely, insanely annoying brawler to verse because of his poison. His poison doesn't have fall off, where basically it deals less damage the more ticks it does, and he needs it. He's pretty balanced otherwise, except his hypercharge, which could also use a nerf in damage. Rico either needs to be removed from the game or severely nerfed. The amount of damage from bouncing off a wall and from his gadget are ridiculous. He's a terrible brawler to fight, and he ruins games. Bull's a really solid and underrated brawler. He can deal 4,000 damage up close, but has severe fall off, which keeps him balanced. He's fun to use when you can connect supers and surprise people. Poco, nerf Poco, that's all. Jokes aside, Poco does need a little buff, but it's a really fun brawler to use. The amount of healing and area control you can get with him is unmatched. Jackie needs a nerf on her speed because she can ruin games with the gadget and her overpowered attack and star power. Her health allows her to tank and deal 2.3 thousand damage per shot. She's very unfun to verse. Lou's a very underrated and really good brawler. His super paired with his gadget paired with his attack is unmatched at area control. Frank is widely considered the worst brawler in the game. He definitely needs a buff in his attack stutter so he doesn't stop when he attacks. He's either a really good hit or a really bad miss brawler, and he needs to be more consistent. Russ is a somewhat underrated brawler, but can definitely use some buffs. Almost nobody uses him, but he does have some cool mechanics. Surge is a very fun brawler to use if you know how to stay alive. All you have to do is get past stage 1 and your job gets much easier. Again, he could be lethal in certain situations, but he could use some buffs and being more consistent. Ape can really pack a punch, dealing a ton of damage, but some people prefer Colt because Colt has a faster movement speed. Take note, Supercell. El Primo is another hit or miss close range brawler. He has no way to decrease the gap between his enemies except his super, but if he does, then he's really lethal. Belle is balanced and satisfying to hit your shots with, and her hyper makes the problem of missing your super go away. And she's also really underrated. More people should use her. Max can be really hard to hit if you've seen Crying Man or Tensai, but he's not that good of a brawler. He needs some buffs to really become useful. Did I just say he? Oh my goodness, bro. Ems is a tank destroyer at long range. That's basically it. She can deal a ton of damage at mid to long range and can be annoying to fight, but nothing special about her otherwise. Amber needs a nerf again. I don't know what Supercell was thinking buffing her. If she locks onto an enemy, with her amount of ammo, she can easily shred through most brawlers. Eve is a surprisingly balanced brawler that can be really annoying with her little parasites. She's underrated and a good sniper and close range brawler. Griff, again, another underrated brawler that can deal a ton of damage and is meta in basketball. He can be very annoying to fight with his wide-ranged attack and super. Sprout takes little aim to hit your shots and is extremely good. Very underrated again, but her hypercharge needs to be changed. Grom takes some time and skill to learn how to aim his 4-split shot, but after you learn, he's unstoppable. Especially with his 3-attack gadget, 2 extra attacks on top of that, and then a super. That's insane. Chuck is extremely annoying to go against and hard to stop. The only way you lose in Heist with him is if you misplace your posts, or they have a better Chuck. But yeah, that's basically it. He kind of fell off. Penny definitely needs a nerf on her super turret. An explosion on deployment, 2,900 damage a shot, more range than any brawler in the game, and an extra fire at the end, kind of like Brock, needs a nerf. Overall though, she's a semi-balanced brawler. Bibi needs a nerf on speed. She's really hard and annoying to fight. She's very insane and I recommend to push her now because of her health, damage, speed, and hypercharge. They make her an unstoppable force. Buzz is another brawler who was recently resurrected with hypercharges and buffs, who I also recommend pushing. He's really lethal with a super chain and can be really good. Rosa is another really good brawler, and she's balanced for the most part. Her hypercharge offers a lot of potential if you can use her in the right situations. B is also a really solid and balanced brawler, dealing over 3,000 damage with her boosted shot. It takes some skill to stay alive, but she's really good. For Daryl, he definitely needs some buffs, and there's just nothing really outstanding about him. When you actually use him, it's really engaging and fun to roll around with the super and blast enemies with your attack, but it's kinda short-lived. Hank is a brawler in dire need of a buff and rework. His attack style is not good because after he uses his attack, it'll take another 5 seconds to charge up another full one, which can actually deal damage, which by then you'll probably be dead. He has extreme potential, but just needs a little rework. Gina is an alright brawler, really needs some big buffs to make him good again, and just nobody really uses him. Tara is a hit and miss brawler, usually a miss. She can be annoying and deal a load of damage, and her shadows can cause damage as well, but she can easily be countered. Mr. P is extremely annoying with his porters and can surprise you with his attack, an underrated brawler that could use a buff and become absolutely meta. Baron definitely needs some buffs because he just can't compete. His reload speed is slow and the effect takes a long time to kick in. Pam is a solid brawler and can heal a ton. She can be really annoying with all of her projectiles, but is rarely seen in-game. Leon is a really good brawler that many consider skillless. His hypercharge paired with the heal star power is infinite healing, and his damage is game-breaking. You should definitely push him down while you can. Chester is the biggest example of a hit-or-miss brawler. He can be extremely good in some situations, but lacks consistency, which is why he's not that good. Regardless, he's still really fun to play. Maisie was peak meta when her hypercharge was freshly released, but now she has simmered down to being very good and balanced. She's a fun brawler to dash in with and pester the enemy with her attack. Mandy takes some skill to aim, that's it. After you learn to predict an aim, Mandy is unstoppable, dealing just under 2,000 damage a shot and 5,000 damage with her super. If the enemy has a good Mandy, you will not see the light. Ryu's a very fun and good brawler concept, but he's just not that good. Some combinations are proven to be deadly, and his teleport ability is insane, but he requires a lot of skill. Janet used to be a really good brawler, but has cooled down to now being balanced. She's really annoying to fight against, but she teaches you not to auto-aim. Lily is a severely underrated brawler who can deal a massive amount of damage at a long range. You will not win against a good Lola because of her damage, her shadow damage, and her very long range. Definitely recommend using her. RT is a very well-rounded brawler at long and short range. His gadget needs fixing though. Inline. He can deal 2.3 thousand damage at long range and upwards of 5,000 damage at close range. Bonnie is a pretty bad brawler. She can be used sometimes, but there's nothing that really stands out in her character. Ash is also a brawler with a very high skill cap. He can only be good in the right situation if the player knows how to use him. Otherwise, he needs a lot of buffs. Gus is another high skill or nothing character. He can deal loads of damage per shot, but is not used for some reason. I don't play him much, so I don't really know. Sandy's a fun brawler for me to play, but not the best. He has low damage, and the super only makes you invisible, so he isn't really optimal for the close combat that he's supposed to do. Melody is another really good brawler on release, but she isn't crazy broken. It does take some time to learn how to use her notes effectively and not die, but she's still insane once you learn. Personally, I haven't learned that yet, so I hate using her, but she's good. Meg slowly grew from being one of the worst brawlers to one of the most used and most practical. Almost everyone uses her in ranked, and for a good reason. She has high health and can hold an area down. Otis is a really underrated and underused brawler who I think is really good. He can deal a ton of damage and prevent enemies from attacking for multiple seconds. He also has a long range, so I don't understand why people don't use him. Buster is also a solid brawler and underrated. He can deal upwards of 2,500 damage per shot, but his super is hard to make use of, which they should fix. Then we have Willow, who is literally Barley with a few tweaks. She needs a little buff to become better, and his super is very buggy, so I think they should probably do something about that. And now, last but not least, Zesty Mosquito. Angelo is extremely overpowered if you can aim. A fully charged shot dealing 4,000 damage and a super doubling it. Absolutely screams, I need a nerf, and I'm sure he'll get one soon. Use him now if you know how to aim, because that's all you need. And that's it, guys. Just remember, these are my own thoughts, and you can have your own as well. If you want to share your opinions, do it in the comments down below. And while you're at it, join my Discord server, like the video, and subscribe. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, have fun, and I'll see y'all next time.